Take a seat.
Hi,
All
Mindy.
right.
Right here.
There you go.
That's good.
That's
This is where Jay Moore is sitting.
That's
Yes.
where Jay
Yeah.
Moore was sitting. Is it warm?
Yeah.
Is it uncomfortably warm?
Jay Moore's kind of hot. He's
Yeah?
yeah.
Digging on Jay?
Adult blonde men, you don't see that often.
No, it's kind of a creepy teen look.
No matter what goes on.
That is true. Adult blonde
Blonde
men.
men. Well, you're kind of blonde. You're
Thank you, Mindy.
reddish blonde.
I'm not an adult yet,
I
though.
came on strong like I'm a pervert. I'm a normal girl.
No,
I
we
I'm not just
understand.
checking out every guy
We
in the morning.
understand.
That's not pervert. That's actually nice.
No,
you
it's
come in,
kinda-
you think a gentleman is good looking. That's not dirty.
It's pleasant.
Okay,
It's
good.
nice.
That could be a cultural thing, too, though. You know. Well, the opposite of a dark-haired, darker-skinned gentleman.
Anthropologically, you're saying I'm like find the opposite, and I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah, I bet that's true.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
It probably does. I wouldn't know.
Do you go
though.
for blonde guys typically?
Well, here's the thing: if you ask most women, and if they're like, the woman who says they don't go for a blonde man is like a liar. Because like anybody, that's like a nice looking
Nice,
Ken
right?
doll, right?
And the
They
blue
made a
eyes
doll
help,
based
too.
on that
Yeah,
model,
yeah.
right?
I have no preference for hair color. I don't care at all. Like if it's a blonde, brunette, none of it matters to me.
Male, female.
Well, you know, sometimes you kind of you settle in the middle.
Well, that's very feminist of you. You're like, I'll take a beautiful woman in any hair color. Thank you
Yeah,
very
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's the attitude that makes somebody sexy. It's like, you know what I mean? I've seen a lot of really like stripper hot people that are not sexy people
And
at
a
all.
sense of humor.
I don't care about that either.
I like
No.
a good
I want
sense
them
of
to think
humor.
I'm funny, but I'm typically laughing doesn't turn me on. But
No, you don't like a funny girl?
I love a funny
Oh,
girl, but it doesn't
look
mean
at
I'm going to
that.
be sexual.
You're out.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a thing that will excite me sexually, but I appreciate it if they have it. Mm-hmm. That make any sense?
Yeah, totally.
Sort of.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you ever do stand-up?
God, I tried it for a while. I don't know, I mean, because you guys are all like really funny, but I did that thing where I saw people doing it. This is terrible. You should never be motivated to do it because it's really an art. But like you see people who suck and people kind of compliment them, and you're like, well, I can suck too.
Right.
Why don't I go do it? But you should never be motivated out of spite. And so I quickly gave up because I'm not good at it.
So when you see people that were just awful?
You know, it's okay. So I will say this: there's this nice kind of. It's coming from a really good place of reverse sexism, where like I feel like a woman will do stand up and people will be like, she's really hilarious, and you're like, it's just like so that people can feel like it's whatever. And so I felt like I was kind of motivated in this bad way of like, well, if the bar is set low, and I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Sarah
yeah.
Silverman's like a genius. She's super funny. You shouldn't do it unless you're really good and you really put in the time to like. Because it's hard work. Like you have to work really hard to get, I think, good. I mean, unless you're like Chappelle or Louis C.K., where like everything they say, it just sounds like an amazing.
I think it just, I think the time that you have to put in is so long, and you know that it's going to be a painful couple of years
Totally.
before you even get close to being any good.
Yeah,
and that
presents
is
and-
like,
And eating it, like I mean,
Just
the
sucking
pain
it,
of
right.
eating it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah.
going to coffee shops in Reseda and practicing your bits on like. I mean, that seems like you have to be a really like tough.
I couldn't imagine, because I know like my buddy Joe Curry started out like with, I mean, the minimum,
Right.
And to sit there, and sometimes you're in a pizza place and all of a sudden you hear, hey, and let's bring up, I'm like, what?
What?
I didn't even know someone was going to be here. Where are they going to be?
Yes, it's barely a venue. You're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I suppose that we're an audience now.
What? They
Trying
do
to have-
comedy here?
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I just wanted a slice, and now I'm
Now
an
I
audience
have
member.
to listen to
Great.
these terrible
I would-
observations.
Guys insulting your shirt and fucking your outfit and your wife.
Who are you? I would instantly want to go to like a name club and get up and do time there. I don't want to
Yeah.
have to go through that horrible time where
Yeah.
you're working a real job to live, and then you're doing this to try to make something of yourself. Fuck that.
Did you bomb?
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing about me was I think that I have no. I mean, here's the thing: if you're a stand-up, the kind of stand-up I like I said, Chappelle, Louis C.K., they are just talking about stuff that's interesting to them, and clearly
Yeah.
they work and they craft jokes, but they're smart and their brains are really like turned on and whatever. But I was just like, I didn't want to open up that much about my life because like Louis can talk about marriage, his kids.
Oh, yeah.
Chappelle, he has so many like, cool demons, and I was like, I didn't have honestly enough that I could like wasn't introspective enough. I didn't want the audience to know that much about me, and so it sucked. So when I'd bomb because people were like, well, we don't even know who you are.
Carlin, though, that didn't, Pryor was the guy who let you in on everything, but Carlin, who was one of the greatest ever, never really did. Like, he was like kind of a guy just kind of standing on the sidelines, just attacking everybody. Yeah.
Yep. And
You didn't know much about him. You're
Seinfeld
right.
is largely, he's never talking about his personal life.
Right.
So those guys, they're like, if you're not going to let yourself in and you don't have that connection, you have to be like a masterful joke writer, or in Carlin's case, like, his opinions are so well researched and smart.
Yeah.
Because that's a guy who's like, he's not just like talking about politics, he's like read about it and like.
Yeah, you have to be very socially aware.
But Mindy, you don't have a good backstory, or you just like to be very private?
I think I'm ultimately a pretty private person.
Right. Which
no one guesses from me because of like my show or like the fact that I'm like, blah, 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 like just talking a lot. But, yeah, like I'm always like, I don't want my parents to be like ashamed. You know, like,
I stopped worrying about that in 1991 because I started talking about certain things. I'm like, if they ever see my act, it's going to be humiliating.
We messed that up a long time ago.
But in success, you guys have become like, if you can be successful about doing that, then they're like, we're proud again, because it's like if you do it at such a high level, it's so cool. Actually,
well, your parents, they like what you do.
They love it. They really do love it. It's weird. Like, we didn't have any performers in my family, but they loved comedy. My parents would, like, all we would do is go for long drives to Virginia Beach from Boston. Because I think, like, Indian families would go for, like, long, weird drives that are, like, 15 hours long. And we would just listen to, like, comedy albums. So they really appreciated it. And I guess it's kind of like stand-up is, like, kind of an American art form. When you're Indian immigrants, it's, like, really interesting to you.
Yeah.
So we would do that. And they love comedy, and they love The Office. They love Carell. But
who they love as a stand-up, your parents?
Seinfeld, they adored. Because in general, too, like, he was pretty clean.
Oh, yeah.
But they also, like, I remember when I first moved to LA, I'd be like, Mom and Dad, you gotta watch The Chappelle Show, which is sketches, not stand-up, but they loved Chappelle. I think kind of, like, racistly in my family, like, we had this, like, kind of unspoken thing where we're just, like, we, like, just love black comedians, too. Because when I was a kid, Bill Cosby stand-up, too. Because he's so moral, which I think my parents connected to as well. Like, the way he's really high, sets a really high bar for how you should be as, like, a husband and a dad. And, like, I think, like, it was funny, so my parents thought that was cool.
Great storyteller.
Such a good
His storytelling is second to none.
And that's what, but Louis is also great at that, the ability to keep you interested as he just walks through a story. No matter what the information is, I lose people 5 minutes. Like, I've learned to get to the fucking point because I lose people fast. Like, but Louis can just keep people for 20. Jim Brewer can do that. There's certain guys that can hold your interest for a long period of time.
Oh, I should watch Jim Brewer, because I only, of course, know his stuff from SNL.
Brewer's
a great stand-up.
Yeah.
His stand-up's amazing.
Is that how he got on SNL? Is it from stand-up?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's been a stand-up his whole life. But I just saw him recently. He does like 5-6 stories. That's his whole set.
That to me
long form, but the jokes are in there the whole time.
That to me is the best.
Oh, then you got to see Brewer next time he's around you. He's great.
Yeah, I should.
How many times did you do it?
Stand-up?
Yeah.
I'd say like 6 times. Once I did it at like Notre Dame, and like I feel like it was like a big football weekend, and it was like because here's the other thing about stand-up. I have my guy friends, BJ and all that, who do stand-up, and they love it. Part of the reason when you're in your 20s and you do stand-up is because of all the action you can get from college girls. And so you're like psyched to do it, and then you go party and you hook up, and it's the funnest weekend ever. But I'm like a home, like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, I'm not going to like go, like, great, I can hook up with a 19-year-old guy. It's like, I'm worried about getting murdered. Like, what? There's no upside really for me. So I just go back to my like weird hotel and watch cable and fall asleep. So it was a very depressing experience.
I did the same thing. I never hooked up with the college girls because the act.
Didn't you?
I don't know, but that's the question I asked many times in the mirror in the hotel bathroom alone as a prostitute was on her way over. It's humiliating. I struck out terribly in colleges.
Really?
Yeah, you need a certain like an act or a personality that they would kind of lock into.
But do they like your act?
Yeah, it would go okay. I never killed in colleges. I think
you weren't going to the right place.
You probably I did enough of them where I was too dirty or I was too mean, and I kind of stopped doing. They just stopped asking for me. Like, I did one like convention, and not a lot of interest. Not a lot of interest.
I'm so surprised to hear that.
I find acting to be harder than stand-up. A lot of people say stand-up's hard, but I find acting to be harder because you have to stay into the scene. You can't break it and say, this stinks if it stinks.
I think you're absolutely right that acting is very hard. I feel like because I write my show and because I'm like allowed as like the writer creator to just like make up lines, it's like very easy. Also, like, my character is not, I'm like disappearing into a part. I'm like doing a kind of a version of myself, a character named Mindy. So
Yeah, right.
it's like,
Do you change stuff from like take to take? You'll just switch lines?
not that much, because I think the other actors in your scenes get annoyed if they don't know what you're going to say, if not everyone's an improv. But like Baron Holtz, who is another comedian who's a writer on the show, he and I improvise a lot, because it's weird, like in a show, like you can only improvise if like he knows where the storylines are going. So he has like an idea of like what areas you can improvise
Yeah,
in.
you can't just take it somewhere
You just can't
completely
take it in like
off,
another direction.
off script.
But in general, like the best stuff, the best shows, like I look at like Raymond and stuff, they're generally not improvised.
No.
You know, like Seinfeld wasn't improvised. That was scripted to a T.
Right.
So if those guys were like the greats, don't depend on it, then like I feel like, why am I?
Well, then you got to look though. Seinfeld wasn't very successful. His show.
That's true.
No. He did well.
Oh, literal
The
gem.
guy who ruins a fun, sarcastic moment. No. Seriously, I'm kidding aside. He was good. The original Office, too, I always thought that Gervais, I thought so much of that had to be improvised or had to be off the cuff, and he said it was all scripted. It was so brilliantly done. Some of the stuff that, like, there's no way they could have scripted that moment. It was too, like, alive and
Those little awkward moments where somebody literally looks like they're tripping up, and it was written. You know, that's brilliant to me. Yeah.
Well, especially if you guys, did you see all of the original Office?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
of course.
So I think that's like a perfect series. But the moment when Tim takes off his microphone.
oh yeah.
And it's just, I think it's also the quality of the mockumentary, which makes you feel like, how could it be scripted? It's so real. But when he takes that off and walks in, it's like, I'd never seen anything like that before. And so when you find out how tightly scripted Steven and Ricky did it, it's kind of crazy. So moving.
Yeah, they're all such great actors. I love when he, in the second episode, I think, when he's just trying to be funny, and I've told him this, just trying to be funny with this new girl at the office, and he does the thing with the answering machine.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
remember that when he mock throws it and he drops it on the floor?
Yes, and it's like,
And it's like, oh, what a perfectly douchey thing to do. There's no way that was scripted.
do you remember that one scene that he did where he was doing he's feeling very competitive, and he was doing they were talking about, like, we always looked at it in the Office as like our favorite moment, when he was talking about the hypothetical thing that happened, and he said there's been a rape up there.
Yeah,
and it was like a part of like they were like
The hotel
they were trying
thing.
to. His whole thing was he was trying to tell his employees, teach them about it, and it was like, why would you improvise that at that moment? And it's just so funny.
Well, he was
really
so
was.
great because the guy was in their office that day trying to teach them like certain things about being successful in business.
Yeah.
But Gervais couldn't handle that this
couldn't
guy.
handle it, yeah.
So he made it a competition and worked against the guy, and it was like, and then they switched roles. And the guy's like, and Ricky Gervais played the guy behind the counter. And he's like, there's a problem in my room. He goes, what's your room number? And the guy's like, 357. He's like, there is no 357.
No, that was one of those things where like that kind of improvised, like, that was so well observed of Ricky Gervais. Like, that was such a funny, that guy who's just terrible at improv and yes-anding. It was so brilliant.
And you have to be so good at what you do to make it seem like that.
Yeah.
To make it seem so naturally awkward.
Now, this is not just like reminiscing about The Office, but one thing I thought was really funny on that show was he was always the person who was offending everybody. But what was so good about David Brent was when he would get frustrated with somebody else. Like, remember that guy Keith? And there was like that long scene where he's trying to like talk to him, and like David Brent for once is being put upon, and he's usually the one that's like bothering other people, and he's just so exquisitely impatient. Like, and
doing the evaluations.
And he's like, my God, who is this idiot? And I feel like we tried with Kevin, because that's such a fun. Because Carell being impatient too was so fun.
Yeah,
when he like just couldn't he couldn't handle the people of in the workplace.
And he was also a prude. Like, David Brent was a prude. Like, he didn't like sex jokes.
Really? Is that
Yes.
true?
Oh yeah. But in the show, he didn't like. He goes, that is sexist. Yeah, he didn't like sex jokes or any type of vulgar stuff. Like, he was a prude.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Did you watch all of the original before you started doing? You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I mean, I was just like the level of detail, the video he did. We spent all of his savings on doing the remake of the If You Don't Know Me By Now video. He was such a, it's interesting because Ricky's so brilliant and so wonderful, and the character was so heartbreaking. And then what's so great about Carell was like, Carell did something different, which was like, Carell, like, he's a little warmer than Ricky. I feel like he exudes like a warmth about him, where like you feel sorry for Ricky, but for with Steve, I felt, maybe just because this is just because we did so many more episodes, you got to know him even more.
Right, yeah.
I wanted to protect Michael. And I feel like Jim wanted to protect him, where even by the episodes at the end, I felt like the Tim character and Ricky Gervais, he grew to admire him, but didn't want to, like, I felt like Jim at the end of The Office, Pam, like, no, they didn't want anyone to hurt Michael, which was kind of a nice thing about having a series on the air for 9 seasons.
Yeah, you kind of explore all angles and personalities. Did you know Patrice?
Wow.
A little bit.
Oh, okay.
I was very intimidated by him because...
Why? He made people feel comfortable and welcome.
I got the sense that I was like always like 1 or 2 sentences away from like an exquisitely mean rant to go on. You know, like,
you did know Patrice.
You described him perfectly.
He'd be like, "Hey, Patrice, like, do you want to go to Crafty?" And he was like, "I'm fat. What are you trying to say?" And then you were like eviscerated. And you're like, I can't believe I offered to go
that's
to Crafty.
funny.
That's
man.
our pal, man.
That was him.
Yeah, he was on. That's how I heard about The Office originally. Like before, I think I knew Patrice was on that show before I even saw the British.
He was
version.
a softie in the end, man.
Yeah.
He was intimidating, but when you got in, it was nice.
He was?
Yeah, he was really good.
He
guy.
did the show a million times.
Yeah.
Jimmy was very close to him and brought him into our arena.
But he was just loud.
We all became friends.
Super funny.
Oh, one of the best.
You're nice to your fans too. I was reading your Twitter and I'm like, she's just a nice person. Like
I'm like terrible.
Oh, really? You're just a great actress?
Well, I'm like fearful. I'm fearful. So like fearfulness makes you nice sometimes, but thank you for saying that. I should have just accepted the compliment. I'm sorry, what were you saying about how nice I was?
No, that's okay. I like the fact that, like, as a true performer, we never want to be told that we're nice. And if someone says you're not nice, you go, what the fuck? Of course I'm nice.
Yeah.
But what happened with people waiting outside to meet you, like on 6th Avenue, and they couldn't meet you?
I did a signing outside of a store on 6th Avenue at the Strand in Club Monaco. It was for my book. And I thought it was for 2 hours supposed to do this reading, but it was incredibly cold yesterday. In LA, it's like 70 degrees, but it was like 25 degrees. And all these girls, because that's who really likes me and writes my book and stuff, these 21-year-old girls or whatever, were waiting for 3.5, 4 hours to
Wow.
meet. And there's too many people for that amount of time. I stayed an extra hour and signed stuff. And I left, and like, apparently, this to me is like, if I had been that age and this had happened to me, I'd be so fucking pissed. Like, imagine waiting for 3.5, 4 hours and then being told when you're within shots that, like, I left. And I had to go to something else afterwards because it's like a packed press tour. And so people were tweeting at me. And I was like, if I was that age and I was such a big fan, that would actually make me actively hate the show. So I felt like I wanted to connect with those people and just be like, I'm so sorry. So I've been trying to, like, I tried to message some of those guys and send them a signed book, or I have some, like, stuff back in LA that my assistant can, like, send them, but it sucks because, we're not a hit show, so anybody who, like, is going to do that, like, it just made me feel really bad.
Well, it was really, because it was, they should have cut the line. That's not your fault. I mean, somebody should have went out there and said, look, she won't make it past this, and they should have just stopped letting people
That's what they
line
usually
up.
do, right?
Yeah, normally.
I don't think they were expecting how popular I'd be.
Yeah. But she was tweeting nice stuff, like, hey, tweet me your address or whatever, and then delete, like, so I guess you could get stuff to them, which I thought was really nice.
Well, at first I said, like, hey, tweet me your address so I can send something. And then I was like, oh, no, these poor young women are sending their addresses, so some serial murderers. So she's like, quickly delete that. I'll direct message you.
Yeah, that really probably wasn't the safest thing.
I know. I was like, now I've put them in danger in addition to making them mad.
You tweet your address and a nude photo, and then just give me your information, and I'll make sure I get something to you.
Mindy Kaling responsible for 20 murders of young women moving to the city to make it.
Were you an improv actress before you started, or did you or just start right with traditional acting?
I was never really an improv actor. I didn't have any training. The training I had, which was excellent training, was just like watching Steve Carell for like 16 hours a day for 8 years, which would make anyone kind of a good actor. Wow. Because you know that, you guys ever see Waiting for Guffin?
Oh, yeah.
So you know that there's this Eugene Levy character who's just like, he's just like, I was not the funny guy, but I sat next to him and I studied him, which was, I think, such a self-aware, funny thing to say. Yeah. And that's how I felt. I was number 14 on the call sheet on that show. But I would watch, like, Helms, Carell, like, Will Ferrell came by, your guys' friend Patrice, Craig Robinson, who's so funny. And once you get those cadences and you're just exposed to it, like, it's like going to acting school. Because Carell comes from Chicago, he's an incredible improviser, and he can't turn it off. So he'll improvise with you, and you just kind of, like, baptism by fire. And you guys are all writers, so if you're a funny writer, you probably at one point were like, I could be in front of the camera, and of course I felt that way. And then I just got the experience to do it.
And you got named one of Time's. What year was it that they named you one of the 100 most influential?
That was last year.
It was last year. And what was their reasoning for it?
What was their reason?
No. I don't mean that in a shitty way.
You're like, it was so
No.
surprised.
I don't mean that.
Dubious.
I don't mean it like that. I'm saying that's a tremendous. That's a tremendous thing to get.
No,
named.
it's too much. I mean, you guys are in comedy, and when it's like you want to be told you're funny, but when it's almost like if you get overpraised, immediately you're like, oh man, this fucking backlash.
Oh, what I do, yeah.
I was saying, like, I was on the list with like surgeons and people who are like, you know, like religious figures.
Let them get on stage or in front of the camera.
And laughter's the best medicine.
So a person I know, and you look like this idiot, where like you feel like you submitted to do it. I remember when it happened, and I knew it too because I'm such a like cynical comedy person where I'm like, great, backlash. I couldn't enjoy it, of course. The minute it happened, LA Times next week, some fucking editor was like, Mindy Kaling is considered, what has our culture become? And I was like,
boy.
I was just saying like, hey man, that's not like, obviously I agree with you.
Right.
Like I didn't
run for this.
I didn't run for this, and I was like, my publicist is admit me for this. But it was, which is such an ungrateful way of saying like, it was such an honor. And at the same time, I was very self-conscious about it.
How annoying is it that they would write the editorial? As a performer, you never, like, do you read the negative stuff? It's hard to avoid
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel I'm so into feedback, which is something that I want to quell in my personality. But, you know, I was saying this earlier, is like, I want our show to be a hit show. And largely the stuff that I love, like Raymond, those shows, they're hit shows. Seinfeld, like the stuff that lasts the test of time. Sometimes they suck, but in general, like, even the comedy snobs will be like, yeah, the biggest hits were kind of the best shows. So for me, I'm like, well, how do I get to that place? So of course I read feedback. But the problem is that it has to be like worthy. Like people calling me like they call me like a terrorist or like whatever racist bullshit they want to say. I have to like sift through that to get to the point where they're like,
to get
that's not constructive.
to like story stuff. And unfortunately, that all comes together.
That's a great point. That really is a great point.
So it's like you want feedback, but you have to get it from like
you got to cut the fat.
The smart
to get to the meat of it.
But like,
everyone didn't used to have such a public voice. In the old days,
platforms,
you know? We talk about it all the time. How if you were on television or movies or anything, someone had to sit down and write a letter and mail it, and hopefully, somebody that screened the mail, if it got through them, it went to someone else. The celebrity never really got to look at a lot of negativity. Now it's, hey, Twitter, bam, oh my God, these monsters.
What a great point, because if you had to write a letter, you have to have sustained hostility to finish a letter, seal it, find the address, and send it. Whereas like a teenager right now could be like, you're so ugly, you should kill yourself.
Bam,
on my Instagram.
It's out.
And I'm like,
it's
hey
there,
man,
right.
maybe like later in the afternoon and when you're not in detention, you might not have wanted to say that to me. But like,
I caught her in a different light, and she looked pretty good.
See, I actually get that, but I put that under constructive. That's actually helpful. But yeah, it's really weird because there are people that say stuff that's critical that makes sense and that I don't find to be just trolling or douchey, like even if I don't like it. And like then when you blast the haters, they're like, you can't take it. It's like, no, you're not being constructive.
There
you
is
think
a
you
difference.
Are. Yeah, and
that's actually the criticism that hurts the most is when someone, especially if it's somebody who I know has good taste. Like there's just one guy on Twitter who like loves some of the shows that I love, and he's able to articulate it in a way which is like exactly the way I would like it.
Oh no,
and he doesn't like the show, and it kills me.
It's like, but you like this.
I know.
You should like this.
You like Veep. I like Veep. We would be friends.
You know what? I'm sure Hitler liked vanilla ice cream too.
Thank you for putting it in perspective like that.
Yeah, I mean, I find the same thing. They like certain things, and then they hate my guts. But just because we have certain similar likes doesn't mean that they're gonna like me. It's amazing how much they can like the thing and hate my guts.
What are your guys' favorite shows when you watch TV? Like because you're so busy. Like
my favorite, Martian. No, Taxi I think is my favorite. Taxi or All in the Family, the two best sitcoms. I think.
So I'm obsessed with Taxi.
Yes, amazing.
Christmas Eve is obsessed with it. And the reason I love it so much, besides the storytelling, is that you had unbelievably broad characters, and then you had Judd Hirsch, who could be in like a drama.
Yeah.
And they coexisted in this world, so like you could like anything and you'd be able to find it. And I felt like when I looked at that show at The Office, we were like, okay, we have John Krasinski, who's so dry, but then we also have Kevin, who's like Michael, I ate the moon. Like, he's like a very broad comedy character. I love that show.
Yeah, it's really the stuff that they did, and I love when Louis gets he fucks Xena's friend. Do you remember when he took Xena's friend home in a cab and she was on pills and he wound up fucking her? It was just so great that was the storyline, was that his girlfriend's friend was on pills and drunk and he banged her.
You can't do that nowadays.
No, I mean, and he was they voted
that
him.
Edgy stuff was hilarious,
and it's just not because people would say you contribute to rape culture if you did that.
Yeah,
but
which, by the way, is good that we're not contributing to rape culture.
No, but I wouldn't think that was a contributing thing to it. Like, I don't think that humor really contributes to a certain.
No.
Believe me, what did Carlin say? If something about changing the condition, people think about changing a language to change a condition. It just doesn't.
I think with comedy, I think it's all about context, and I really think there aren't many subjects you can't use in comedy, and in that case, I find it kind of insulting when people say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that" or "shouldn't joke about that." But I don't see anything that should be off limits, really. I mean, obviously people are going to be offended, but I think we should be able to joke about anything.
If you make it funny, especially,
it's
right?
interesting because I think that I agree with you, but I'd also say that I think sometimes comedians can be very lazy because they take an area that's just taboo.
I'm going to say it can suck. People can get on service and it'll suck, but I don't think it just has to suck because of the subject. I think how they tackle the subject is why it sucks.
Yes.
And there are horrible things that people make jokes about that it's like, oh my God, you almost feel guilty laughing, but you are laughing. And it's because it's done so well.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's so much the subject matter as the horrible way people go about trying to make a joke about it. It's all about execution.
The lazy part is just kind of going after a subject just to do it.
Here's what I'll say. Like, you get a lot of attention by doing that, and sometimes people laugh because they can't, because of the audacity of it. Which is not an earned laugh. And I notice women fall into this trap a lot, female stand-ups, where I feel like they're like, oh, it's interesting if I'm just like, I got raped yesterday, guys. And everyone laughs. Everyone laughs. No, but like everyone laughs because they couldn't believe an attractive woman would say it.
Right.
Which, if you're a joke writer and you have spent your life like, in the trenches sitting around jokes, and you're like, you can't just go up there and wear makeup and make a joke, just say abortion. That doesn't mean you're funny.
Right.
And the worst thing is like, Sarah, who is an exquisite joke writer, not to throw the word exquisite around twice in a half an hour, but she's an amazing joke writer, and she'll write a joke in an edgy area that is actually like a joke. And the watered down version of that, to me, kind of sucks. I also, I don't know, maybe I'm a prude because like I worry about young women who get into comedy too, who like use that as their calling card, because men are going to get titillated by that. And I just want to be like, no, they're not interested in you and for the reason you think they are. But,
I think that goes away. We have to wrap with Mindy, but
oh man,
no, that's they see you have another interview to do. You're really interesting, and it's Mindy. Honestly,
no, for real.
Mindy Kaling.
We really like the time
on Twitter, and the Mindy Project is Tuesday at 9:00 on Fox, and there's an all-new 1-hour spring premiere, episode 9. Oh, episode 9 p.m. Okay, this is one long run-on sentence, and I'm butchering the plug like the no-talent fucking shitbag I am. It's an all-new...
You made a small, not even worth mentioning type mistake.
I know, but a small but critical error. Episode 9:00. And did you want? We have a huge fan of yours here. Did you want to ask a question? Dan, you just get to a mic real quick because she has to go.
You're so
you have to get to a microphone.
Demure. How's it going?
Come
over here. Hi. How are you?
There's a mic right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want to ask her a question?
Yeah.
Hey, what's your name? I'm Danny Brand.
Hey, nice to meet you.
You're like my favorite person.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. I guess I don't really have a specific question. Are you going to write another book?
I am. Yeah, I'm working on it right now. Just long, angry essays and how unfairly I feel like I've been treated when I haven't been, truly. that kind of thing. I want to ask you guys about more of the shows you like. I love talking about. It's so easy to like hate on stuff, but I love hearing.
Come back and see us, man.
So you like Taxi, which is a show about 40 years ago.
I liked MASH, even though the humor on MASH to me doesn't really hold up as much, but the serious, awful moments hold up.
I'll watch Seinfeld 8,000 times a night because I think that's how many times it's on.
Yes.
And the same episode over and over. I'll laugh at the same spots. I don't know why, but that is just an amazing show.
The cadences on that show are like exactly what you want to see before you go to bed. I noticed.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
it's
you're
one
like,
of those,
oh, this is like a lull in me.
That's funny.
So
The world is gone and I can sleep now.
Yeah, Exactly.
I'm a huge fan of the Brady Bunch.
Okay, guys.
I am too.
The most recent show was on 19 years ago.
But only the Cousin Oliver years. When Cousin Oliver came, it really brought it home. When Alice and Sam had their relationship, that's when it got kind of heavy.
That is true.
Mr. Brady made his announcement.
I haven't watched many comedies of late.
I'm so curious if you guys are like
But I do
Workaholics
like,
or Always Sunny or any of those shows.
I loved Always Sunny. I tapped
good,
out for whatever reason. I don't know why I tapped out for no specific reason, but I loved that show.
O'Reilly.
Oh.
All right, do we have to wrap up this?
Yeah, Mindy's got to
I'm here
go.
for an hour and a half. So much fun, guys. I love talking to you.
Absolutely.
You come back and see us.
I guess we're
please.
done.
Yeah, I guess we're done too.
Hi, Ryan.
Yeah, sure. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
After 20 years of broadcasting excellence, Opie and Anthony have created a show that doesn't allow a moment to be missed. So don't. Catch what you didn't hear or listen to it all over again. The Opie and Anthony Encore, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, and all throughout the day. Only here on the Opie and Anthony channel. It's real.